Chapter 3, Section 3, Cycles of Matter. Learning objectives. Explain how matter flows between trophic levels and among ecosystems. Explain how water cycles globally. Identify the importance of how main nutrient cycles through the ecosystems. Explain how nutrient availability affects primary productivity. Recycling in nature. All organisms require elements called essential nutrients that serve as building blocks for components that comprise living tissue. Living cells need 6 of these elements: oxygen, hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium in relatively large amounts, but organisms cannot manufacture these elements on their own, and they never get used up. At first glance, matter and energy might seem to flow through living systems in similar ways, but energy flows from primary producers through trophic levels in a strictly one-time, one-way stream with losses along the way. Living systems can use energy and store it, but cannot reuse it. All elements are recycled. Elements are recycled within and among ecosystems through cycles that may involve the biosphere, geosphere, and hydrosphere, and atmosphere. These biogeochemical cycles are powered by the flow of energy, and they recycle the nutrients. Processes that cycle matter. The biological processes are activities performed by living organisms. These include photosynthesis, eating and burning of food, respiration, and eliminating waste products. Biological processes mainly occur in the biosphere but involve all 3 spheres. Geological processes. These are processes that occur mainly in the geosphere, and they involve volcanic eruptions, formation and breaking of rock, and major movements of matter within and below Earth's surface. Physical and chemical processes. These include cloud formation, precipitation, running water, and action of lightning. These processes occur primarily in the hydrosphere, atmosphere, and geosphere, but also affect the biosphere. Human activities include mining, burning of fossil fuels, clearing land, cutting and burning forests, and manufacturing and using fertilizers. Human activities were once minor, but have grown in scale so much that they now have effects on the global scale. These activities include mining and burning fossil fuels and other human activities, and human causes of global change are found on the outermost ring of our global change model. Humans can change systems, processes in 4 spheres, leading to measurable changes in the Earth system. Global processes and global systems. Biological, geological, physical, and chemical processes, as well as human activities, cycle atoms like carbon and nitrogen through the biosphere, atmosphere, hydrosphere, and geosphere. These processes and element cycles are represented in the Understanding Global Change model. Human activities are located in the model's outer ring, labeled Cause of Global Change. Human activities can affect the global system processes located within the model's middle ring and result in measurable changes in the Earth system. The water cycle. Every time you see rain or snow, or watch a river flow, you are witnessing part of the water cycle. Water cycles among the hydrosphere, the atmosphere, and the geosphere, sometimes outside the biosphere and sometimes within it. Some water enters the atmosphere as water vapor through evaporation from the ocean or other parts of the hydrosphere. Water can also enter the atmosphere from the biosphere by evaporating from leaves of plants in a process called transpiration. This cycle is represented by the Understanding Global Change diagram within the hydrosphere. Water vapor may be transported through the atmosphere over great distances by winds. If the air carried by the water vapor cools, the water condenses into tiny droplets to form clouds. When the water droplets become large enough, they fall as rain, snow, sleet, or hail on land. Some precipitation flows along the surface in what scientists call runoff, until it enters a river or stream that carries it in the ocean or lake. Water can also be absorbed into the soil where it is called groundwater, and can enter plants through their roots or flow into rivers, streams, lakes, or oceans. Some groundwater penetrates deeply enough to become part of underground reservoirs. Water that enters the atmosphere through transpiration or evaporation begins the cycle all over again. So the water cycle, like other cycles of matter, passes through the atmosphere, hydrosphere, geosphere, and biosphere. Nutrient cycles. The carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus cycles are particularly important parts of several global systems and are vital to the function of all ecosystems. Elements that organisms need to sustain life are called nutrients. Organisms need nutrients to build tissues and carry out life functions. Oxygen is constantly released into the atmosphere by photosynthesis and essential to organisms that use cellular respiration for energy. Oxygen also participates in parts of the carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus cycles by combining with these elements and cycling with them. The carbon cycle. Carbon is a major component of organic compounds, including carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. In fact, it is so important that life on Earth can be described as carbon-based. Places where carbon is stored for either long or short periods of time are called carbon reservoirs. Earth's four major carbon reservoirs are the atmosphere, the hydrosphere, mainly in the oceans, the geosphere in both rocks and fossil fuels, and the biosphere in the form of living tissues and organic compounds in the soil. There are biological processes involved in the carbon cycle. Photosynthetic primary producers remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and use it to build carbohydrates. These carbohydrates pass from primary producers to heterotrophs, where they serve as energy sources or as raw materials to build proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids. All organisms, including plants and other nutrients, return carbon dioxide to the atmosphere during respiration. When organisms die or decompose, usually break down their bodies, releasing carbon or other nutrients, but sometimes primary producers are buried into the soil before they decompose. Millions of years ago, the remains of many land plants were buried and transformed over time into coal deposits. Similarly, buried remains of marine algae were transformed into oil or natural gas. Over millions of years, these processes removed carbon from the atmosphere and stored into the geosphere. That's why coal, oil, and natural gas are called fossil fuels. In fact, they are fossilized organic carbon. Carbon is found in several large reservoirs in the atmosphere. It can be found as carbon dioxide gas in the hydrosphere, as dissolved carbon dioxide in the geosphere, in rocks and soil, and underground as coal and petroleum, and calcium carbonate, and in the biosphere as organic matter. The nitrogen cycle. All organisms require nitrogen to make amino acids, which combine to form proteins and nucleic acids such as DNA and RNA. Many different forms of nitrogen occur naturally. The largest reservoir of nitrogen is the atmosphere, where nitrogen gas makes up 78% of the air we breathe. Nitrogen reservoirs in the biosphere and geosphere include nitrogen-containing substances such as ammonia, nitrate ions, and nitrite ions, which are found in the soil, in waste produced by many organisms, and in dead and decaying organic matter. There is also a large reservoir of dissolved nitrogen in the hydrosphere. Most organisms cannot use nitrogen gas. Among living organisms, only certain types of bacteria can convert nitrogen gas into ammonia in a process known as nitrogen fixation. Some nitrogen-fixing bacteria live in soil and on roots of plants such as peanuts and peas. Lightning can fix small amounts of nitrogen in a process called atmospheric nitrogen fixation. Other bacteria convert ammonia into nitrogen and nitrate and nitrite, which can be used by primary producers. When consumers eat producers, those nitrogen compounds are reused. The bacteria and fungi that act as decomposers are also vital parts of the nitrogen cycle. Decomposers release nitrogen compounds from animal waste and dead organisms that producers may take up again. Some bacteria obtain energy by converting nitrates into nitrogen gas. which are released into the atmosphere in a process called denitrification. The phosphorus cycle. Phosphorus is essential to life because it's part of molecules such as DNA and RNA. Unlike carbon, oxygen, and nitrogen, phosphorus does not cycle through the atmosphere. One reservoir of inorganic phosphorus is found in the geosphere in the form of phosphorus rock and soil minerals. Another reservoir is located in the hydrosphere in the form of dissolved phosphate and phosphate sediments in both freshwater and marine organisms.
My name is Dr. Jeff, and I'm on a mission to help kids learn science. I've created...
Welcome to Moo Moo Math and Science and the phosphorus cycle. Along with the water cycle, the carbon cycle, the nitrogen cycle, the phosphorus cycle is another biogeochemical cycle that is essential for life on Earth. A biogeochemical cycle is a pathway by which a chemical substance moves through a biotic and the abiotic compartments of Earth. Although phosphorus is not found in the atmosphere, it still plays a very important role in plants and animals on Earth. Phosphorus is essential for plant and animal growth, as well as the health of microbes inhabiting the soil. Phosphorus is very important for the production of DNA and RNA, helps to make up cell membrane, and the production of ATP. The phosphorus cycle is a slow process and involves 4 key steps. Step 1, weathering. Phosphorus is found in rocks. Weathering, along with rain, breaks down the phosphorus in rocks and it travels to the soil and into water sources. Step 2 is absorption by plants and animals. Once in the soil, plants, fungi, microorganisms are able to absorb phosphorus and then grow. Some of it also makes its way to the ocean and fresh water, and animals are able to drink this water and absorb the phosphorus. Plants absorb the water along with the phosphorus, and then the animals eat the plants, and the phosphorus moves into the animal in this way also. Step 3, return to the environment by decomposition. Animals excrete waste, and decomposers are able to use the phosphorus in the waste material. Furthermore, when the plants and animals die, the bacteria convert the organic phosphorus into inorganic phosphorus in a process called mineralization. And then step 4, sediment to rocks. Some of the phosphorus gets buried in sediment, which over time becomes rocks, and the cycle continues. Some of the phosphorus in the soil gets washed to the ocean, where a similar process takes place. Plants and animals in the ocean absorb the phosphorus, die and decompose, and some of the phosphorus ends up as sediments in the rock. Humans have had a significant impact on the phosphorus cycle. Fertilizers containing phosphorus is added to the soil. This helps the plant grow. However, when the levels of phosphorus are too high, the overabundance of plant nutrients serves and drives excessive growth of algae. When these algae die, they can be toxic to the plants and animals in the ecosystem. If you'd like to know more about the phosphorus cycle,
nutrient limitation. One important characteristic of an ecosystem is its primary productivity, the rate at which primary producers create new organic material. If ample sunlight and water are available, the primary productivity of an ecosystem may be limited by the availability of nutrients. If even a single essential nutrient is in short supply, primary productivity will be limited. If any nutrient is in short supply, if any gear sticks, the productivity of an entire food web can be limited. Any nutrient whose supply limits productivity is called a limiting nutrient. Limiting nutrients in the soil. In all but the richest soil, plant growth can be limited by a short supply of one or more nutrients. Nutrient limitation is the reason farmers use fertilizer to maximize crop growth. Limiting nutrients in aquatic ecosystems. In the ocean, nitrogen is often a limiting nutrient. Sometimes runoff from heavy rains carries large amounts of limiting nutrients from heavy fertilizing fields into aquatic ecosystems. This fertilizer runoff delivers abnormally high concentration of limiting nutrients such as nitrogen or phosphorus into bodies of water. These nutrients stimulate primary producers such as algae to grow and reproduce far beyond the normal rates, causing what is called an algal bloom. Severe algal blooms can cover the water's surface and disrupt the functioning of an entire ecosystem. In the ocean, excess nitrogen is often the cause of algal blooms. In freshwater environments, excess phosphorus is usually the cause.